The Devil Are We? I'm Matt. It's been a while. Let's have a look what Ross Coulthart has got to say. Is there any more revelations? Are we going to go into the woo, psionics, does brain waves control UFOs? I don't know nowadays. Let's have a look anyway.
G'day and welcome back to Reality Check Q&A, that time of the week where you get to ask me, your host, Ross Coulthart, the curly questions. And of course, here to help me do that today is Megan Orada, our producer and good friend. Hello, Megan. How are you today?
Ross, just fantastic. How are you doing this week?
Very well. We've got some good news on the horizon. Next Tuesday, September the 9th, there's going to be a task force hearing on the declassification of federal secrets entitled, quote, very optimistically, Restoring Public Trust Through UAP Transparency and Whistleblower Protection.
I got a feeling that that's going to be a massive nothing burger. Yeah, I just got a feeling that it's not going to be much cop, to be honest.
It's on Tuesday, September the 9th, 2025 at 10 a.m. in the US Capitol Visitors Centre, HVC 210. And there's going to be 4 witnesses. One of them is our good friend and colleague, George Knapp, probably the most eminent and most knowledgeable journalist reporter on the issue of UAPs going back decades. But the other 3 are fascinating. They're all alleged UAP first-hand witnesses: Jeffrey Nussitelli, who's a US Air Force veteran; Chief Alexandro Wiggins, a UAP witness; and Dylan Borland, a UAP witness, also a US Air Force veteran.
Right, it's more people coming out saying I saw a UFO. It's not going to move the needle. Where are the scientists? Where are the people who actually handled the materials? I'm sorry, but I don't know. It might be good, but we've had it. We've had it with witnesses coming forward. Just if you've got Dave Fravor coming out, going, we had Tic Tacs flying around the ships and doing manoeuvres that no one could possibly do, and then Dave Grush comes out. You got Jake Barber coming out with what Eve said about retrieval programs. I just don't see how this is going to be any better than what we've already had, but wait and see.
The hearing's going to be open to the public and the press. It will be live streamed. We're going to be doing a special on Reality Check. It'll be midnight my time, the witching hour in Australia, but I'll be there to report live on the events from DC. And we've just had our correspondent in Congress, Joe Khalil, speak to Representative Anna Paulina Luna, and this is what she's had to say.
Actively getting pushback on our need to know clearances, just so you know.
From the DOD?
From intelligence agencies, but they're saying that they can't find the authorizing agency to actually give us clearance, which is so crazy.
That seems like a silly question, or it seems like a silly thing, because wouldn't the intelligence agencies have that information?
Correct. So you can see that on our end too. We're still working through stuff, but it is really interesting when you look into some of these people's backgrounds, and I can tell you that we still have been unable to confirm certain people in SCIFs, and so until those criteria are met, we won't be able to get SCIF briefings from anyone.
Okay. Because these clearances are not just you guys, but it's the people that you're trying to bring into this.
Yeah.
Now, Megan,
Seems ridiculous, doesn't it? The people who are supposed to be overseeing everything to do with American politics, American military, American intelligence, and they don't have clearances to know half the stuff, and the people that they've got the information from don't know who to go to provide that clearance. Seems like 7 layers of bureaucracy, just onion layered, probably on purpose.
Takeaway from that is that, as usual, the intelligence community is putting obstacles in Congress's way to being able to fully and properly interview these witnesses.
It's calling it Congress. He's calling it Congress. He's not calling it the Congress. Well done, Ross. Well done.
And it's quite clear they want to take people into the skiffs where they can be interviewed about things that are possibly national security sensitive. And why on earth, if there's nothing to hide, would anyone from the intelligence community want to put an obstacle in the way of Congress, which, after all, under the US Constitution, has the right to review. Under Article 1 of the Constitution, it has the right to review all congressional expenditure. Why would anyone in the intelligence community or the defence national security establishment want to put any kind of an obstacle in Representative Luna's way to stop them from being able to talk to witnesses if there's nothing to hide?
Great question, Ross. It is that never-ending rat race over there in DC.
It's a bit of a joke, to be honest, Megan. I do worry that this hearing's a dog and pony show. I know for a fact that there are other witnesses, at least one other witness that was wanted to be called by particularly Representative Burleson, who's been pushing for this witness to appear. And I know that there has been pushback from the intelligence community stopping that witness from speaking, which is absolutely bloody outrageous. When is Congress going to develop a spine and start subpoenaing under oath the people who are obstructing? I think it's...
Because I think there's certain people in the Congress, that actually, to make it look like the, pro transparency, getting the information out about UAP and all these special access programs, and they're probably not. So I think it's a fighting battle in Congress to actually get the people in Congress to actually, one, care about the situation, and two, find out who's really for transparency and not just a mouthpiece for maybe the intelligence community.
Time for Congress to start getting bolshy, to start waving a big stick and calling some of these suckers and bringing them before the Congress and asking them the hard question.
Getcha, suckers.
Being far too nice.
Well, Ross, last week you interviewed a firsthand UAP witness who is also a U.S. veteran. Case and Best. That interview is doing awesome for us on the Reality Check YouTube page. We have a couple questions there. I have one statement from Johnny who left this in the comment section. This alone should be sufficient reason to shut down AARO and transfer their mandate over to the FBI. Your thoughts on that?
Hear, hear. I mean, I think AARO's inability to fairly and objectively investigate UAP cases is now transparently revealed with the evidence of Case and Best. I do know that the Americans for Safe Aerospace has some people inside AARO that it respects and admires, and that the new director, Dr. John Kozlowski, is doing his noble level best inside AARO to try to be fair and objective and doing the work.
John Kozlowski is probably more open to the idea that there's something to the phenomena, but it's whether AARO have got the actual, the ability to go in and get the information that they need. I don't think it is, so it's not fit for purpose if that's the case. The FBI, would you trust the FBI to do an even better job than AARO? I wouldn't.
That he's doing. But there's not much hope when you have the fox in charge of the henhouse. Essentially, they're answerable to USD, the Office of the Undersecretary for Defence Intelligence, and it's quite clear that a lot of the obstruction that's happening inside AARO is coming from the Defence Department itself, to whom AARO is answerable. There needs to be an independent, objective body that's completely separate from the Defence Department, because frankly the intelligence services and the Defence Department are actively obstructing, and we have Representative Anna Paulina Luna on the record basically saying that in what Joe Khalil has obtained from her inside Congress today.
We'll go to our next question on the Case and Best interview. This comes in from Chris James on X. Hi, Megan. Can you ask Ross to just clarify if the craft disappeared or it moved that fast we can't see it with our eyes? As I don't believe in dimension travel, I think the craft moved that fast we don't see it.
Look, I suspect you're right. Kaysen didn't know himself. I did ask that question, and it was quite clear from Kaysen's answer that what he saw was the object quite literally disappeared. And it's one of the reasons why Kaysen and his colleagues don't think this object was any kind of blimp. There's been quite a few people on the comments saying that this is obviously some kind of blimp. But blimps don't instantaneously disappear on a beautiful cloudless blue sky day where they had 100% visibility. It's quite obvious that whatever the object was, it either instantaneously winked out of existence, which of course is not something within known human physics, or it moved so blooming fast that it wasn't able to be seen with the human eye.
I think, does the human eye process at 25 frames per second? I might have got that wrong, but I'm pretty sure I saw something about the maximum capacity of the human eye to process information. So you can imagine how fast something would have to be acceleration-wise. I generally think there's things out there that move that fast.
We know that there are objects that have been recorded moving at incredible speeds, and I guess the simple answer to the question that's posed by the reader is we just don't know. We have no idea. And that's why this kind of thing needs to be investigated. A few people have pointed out on the YouTube site that this is Cheyenne Mountain. This is one of the most sensitive military installations in the world, and they have radar and surveillance systems in that area precisely for the reason of protecting against overflights and incursions by unauthorised personnel. So presumably there is data that would be available, unless of course it's been deleted by people who are continuing the cover-up. So I think I'd just love to see when people like Kaysen Best come forward and say that they've made reports about this to organisations like AARO, and AARO transparently fails to do a proper job in investigating it. I would love to see somebody like the congressional committee that's investigating this stuff subpoenaing NORAD, Northcom, and saying, okay, let's have a look at the surveillance systems videos for that day. Let's have a look at the radar telemetry for that day. Let's see if anything was recorded in any of the logs for that day. One of the things that Christopher Mellon has pointed out in previous interviews is that Northcom NORAD, until very recently, wasn't reporting incursions that it was actually registering. And these
There's either two reasons for that. Is because they're US military tech, and therefore you're not going to report on stuff which is your black budget projects, or you're not going to highlight the fact that you are being your airspace is being incurred on so much that you're not just going to go, yeah, there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, the general public would not like that. I mean, what's the point of paying all your tax dollars for all this military protection if you cannot do anything about what's encroaching on your airspace?
Some reason were not being reported down to organisations like AARO. And part of the new laws is to mandate that these things be properly reported. This is why stronger UAP disclosure laws are so important. This is why Congress needs to grow a pair and grow a spine and start not just calling people and inviting them to appear, but to start aggressively subpoenaing possibly reluctant witnesses and putting them on the stand in open public hearing, and if necessary, grilling them and giving them the third degree and asking why cases like Kaysen Best's allegations, which are supported, of course, by at least 3 other colleagues, aren't being properly investigated by the institution that the public is being told is supposedly doing objective and rigorous.
The problem is, the general public probably don't give two shiny shites about UFOs, if I'm honest. I think, was it that the hearings had something like 30,000 people watching live stream or something? Might be more than that, but if you had the Amber Heard Johnny Depp case, you had millions of people tuning in, watching the case, right? They was interested in it. Bit of escapism. You know, what's listed time of her crapping on Johnny Depp's bed? You know, drinking mega pints. There were so many good things in that trial, to be honest. Her defense lawyers were fucking inept. They really were. Absolutely inept. Good for Johnny Depp. But he couldn't. I'm talking about Johnny Depp. Who cares now? But either way, right? So there's that many more people interested in it that I can't imagine that Congress, to be fair, this is number one on their list. So getting strong, I don't think you got the public backing. Not for the majority. I think the majority of the public will just be, what's the Epstein files? You know, what's happening with immigration control? What's happening with troops on the streets of Washington? What's happening with tariffs? Someone says, what's happening with UFOs? Down the list. Now, if you turn around and say 3i Atlas is a spacecraft that's going to somehow do a slingshot around the sun, do a braking maneuver, and then intercept Earth, people will be tuned in then, no doubt.
Reporting into UAPs. It's transparently obvious now that the Defence Department is deliberately behaving like an ostrich with its head in the sand. It doesn't want to know the answer. Why is there ongoing active obstruction to the Congress when it is legally, constitutionally mandated to do these kinds of investigations? It's time for all political representatives, every senator, every congressional representative, to start asking the hard questions about UAPs.
All right, we will go to our next question from Christian. Is there any...
Sorry for pausing so much. I just love the fact that Ross talks for about 5-10 minutes, right, and he gets into it, and Megan just sort of goes, yeah, nice one, Ross. Anyway, next question. Doesn't... I always feel like it'd be a bit more engaging if she sort of does a back and forth about what Ross is saying, and I know that it's supposed to be a quick Q&A about certain questions throughout the week that he's got to answer. But I think if you had someone out there and you've got two people's bouncing off each other based on the questions being asked, might be, I don't know, a better format, maybe.
rules that the FAA has about UAP or unidentified stuff in the sky. I've heard many close encounters with pilots talking to the FAA. There's tons of those conversations out there, but I've never heard a whistleblower from the FAA. What does Ross think?
Well, there is actually a long way back. I commend people to go and have a look at the history of the JAL case, which was the Japan Airlines cargo plane, which was, I think, flying towards Alaska. I think it was doing an over the top of the world route. And whilst it was in flight, a gigantic object, a huge spherical object, the size more larger than the 747 that was actually flying, it appeared right in front of a captain, I think by the name of Takeuchi, and he made, much to his chagrin later in life, he really copped it for making this report, he made a full report about what he saw, and commendably he did so. Hopefully organisations like Ryan Graves' Americans for Safe Aerospace will protect pilots and civilian and military witnesses who see these things in aviation now from coming forward and give them the protections they need to ensure they're properly heard. But what happened in the JAL case, there was an FAA senior investigator called, I think, John Callahan. And John had the temerity when the CIA came in, and it was the CIA, for God's sake, that came in and confiscated the radar telemetry tapes that were tracking this object that had been recorded, I think, out of Anchorage Aircraft Control. The CIA, the external, supposedly overseas intelligence service for the United States, for some reason got involved in investigating what was essentially an internal United States aviation issue. Why did the CIA intervene and confiscate the tapes from the FAA? They took them off Mr. Callahan, and thank God he had a pair and showed the balls to basically keep a copy. And when the agency confiscated the data records that recorded the history of this flight, it was John Callahan who came forward, I think, to one of the Stephen Greer disclosure hearings in the early 2000s and revealed that he had the radar telemetry data. So yes, there has been FAA whistleblowers. I talk to people in the FAA. I particularly talk to people on the West Coast and East Coast of the United States who work in air traffic control, who tell me that they see anomalous objects all the time. And
yeah, I remember that case. I think he did a drawing, and the drawing was like a massive round orb UFO. I think it had a strip of lights through it. And the way that he said the size was almost like an aircraft carrier flying alongside. It was huge. And he said it was absolutely huge. And like he said, the FAA, the tower was saying that they picked it up on radar as well. And it was shadowing them for a while, flew alongside them. The pilot said, yeah, they'd never seen anything like it. It was absolutely humongous in terms of a UFO. But I suppose like radar gets picked up all sorts of stuff all the time. There's all sorts of stuff flying out there.
that there is a reporting system, because the assumption is that these objects are often US black aircraft. And legitimately, even though there will no doubt be people who squawk that we should all know the full truth, legitimately, I think the military and the intelligence community are intervening to keep possible tracks of highly advanced aircraft that we do know exist, but which aren't yet public. I can understand why they want to keep those aircraft secret. But in the midst of all of that, I am told by some FAA employees that there are objects that are clearly anomalous, that are moving at speeds far beyond known human science, and they suspect far beyond known human technology, even Blackwell technology. And there is a pattern of behaviour, but if people really want to take an interest, they should have a look at the JAL case. I think his name was John Callahan. Sadly, John's now passed. I got the opportunity to speak to him a few years back. He was an extremely brave public official who came forward with the radar tapes showing the movements of this object that was being described by the Japan aircraft crew moving in exactly the way that they described.
All right, Russ, we have a question coming in on the interview that you just did on the telepathy tapes. Hi, just one question about tests. Had they contacted or planned to contact someone from Stargate, as those topics seem to me as similar or even the same?
Testes.
Well, I mean, obviously, the people who ran Stargate are still, some of them are still alive. Hal Puthoff's still alive. Russell Targ is still alive. And I know a couple of other people who were involved in the Stargate program. Yes, I mean, I do agree. I mean, I think what Stargate shows is that the CIA particularly was willing to fund investigative research right back in the 1970s and 1980s into psychic so-called phenomena. And indeed, if you speak to the people, as I have done, it's quite clear from talking to Russell Targ in particular and Hal Puthoff that the program, the Stargate program, was not the failure that it has been represented to be by so many of the debunkers. It did in fact demonstrate valid, usable data, and indeed President Carter himself acknowledged that there was a particular case that he'd been briefed about, which at the time was still classified, but which, because he as president spoke about it, was able to be declassified, and that involved the detection of a Soviet-era aircraft that had crashed in the African jungle that was detected by a remote viewer to within a few kilometres of its crash location, and it allowed the retrieval of that aircraft before the Russians could get to it. Now, I'm aware of other highly classified, still in operations involving remote viewing, which to this day are still classified because they haven't been spoken about by a president. Hopefully Donald Trump might, as president, be willing to speak more openly about the ongoing PSI program that I do know exists inside the US government. I've actually spoken to people that have been involved in collaborations with US government agencies doing remote viewing right now. It's still happening.
I've always been fascinated with remote viewing. Apparently, anyone could do it. Some people are just more capable of doing it. Ingo Swan, guys like that. But it's a massive fascinating. Imagine just be able to transport your consciousness and then see information about something that maybe have happened a million years ago, or something that's on the other side of the planet. There's a site that you can go to and you could test it. So a bit of coordinates will flash up, and then you obviously do remote viewing, you take sketches, you think about what you're doing, and then you do reveal, and it reveals the information like a picture. I did it, and I think on the second try, it was eerily close, absolutely eerily close. But then a few times when I tried it, it was almost like I got it wrong. But then the one after that I got right, and it was like I was 2 in front every single time. It was strange. It really was strange. You could say it was massive coincidences, but after a bit you go, it's happening too much where you're getting too many things right that it can be a bit of a coincidence. I don't know. I'm fascinated, truly fascinated by it.
Remote viewing is still being used as an intelligence tool by the Americans, and you can bet your bottom dollar by the Russians and by the Chinese. There's been a very, very clever PSYOP disinformation operation to convince the public through movies like The Men Who Stare at Goats, based on the John Ronson book, and it's pushed a line that essentially there is nothing to psi phenomena. There is a lot to psi phenomena, and what Kai Dickens and Dr. Julia Mossbridge and Professor Diane Hennessy-Powell have demonstrated, you will soon see in due course in a peer-reviewed journal, hopefully, papers basically demonstrating that they have been able to confirm telepathy, that telepathy is real. This is mind-blowing, and I think a lot of people have actually missed the implications of our interview with Kai Dickens and Dr. Julia Mossbridge. The implications are immense. It suggests that these non-verbal autistic children are doing something that has long been speculated about, but never proven. And if you believe what Dr. Julia Mossbridge told us, along with Kai Dickens in the interview that you can find on our Reality Check archive, you will see that they are saying that very soon Kai will be broadcasting on her forthcoming documentary sometime in 2026, and hopefully Dr. Julia Mossbridge will be publishing a paper at some stage as well to prove definitively that telepathy is real. It's getting really interesting in the world of high strangeness. A lot of
the woo is real. The woo is strong with this one. Proving that telepathy exists is going to be one of those. I can imagine you're going to bring out a paper. You're going to show your workings, show your test results. Even maybe showing the evidence, one of these non-verbal autistic children, maybe going through how you do it, and there's going to be mainstream scientists that try to pull it apart left, right, and centre. So, how do you prove telepathy exists? I can't even begin to tell you.
The stuff that the debunkers have pouring scorn at for so long is now becoming provable to the point where it's getting very hard for the debunkers to evade the truth.
Absolutely. We will go to Willie Taylor next. Hey, Russ, since you now know the Tic Tacs are Lockheed Tech, should we take everything David Grush says with a pinch of salt since he told you that the Tic Tacs are truly anomalous? Keep up the good work, mate.
Look, we don't say, and I've never said, that all Tic Tacs are Lockheed Martin. if you listen back to what I've said that my sources, multiple independent sources, have told me that the 2004 Tic Tac US Nimitz incident was in some way controlled or operated by Lockheed Martin, that it was a blue on blue. And if you think about it, why did the admiral of that battle cruiser fleet know and not register any surprise at all when he was approached and told about these objects? It doesn't mean that all Tic Tacs are human Lockheed Martin or other private aerospace corporation operated. As I've said repeatedly, and there's some mischievous disinformation going out there on the internet from people who are deliberately sowing disinformation, trying to cause mischief, it is entirely possible that what I am told Lockheed Martin was operating that day was an NHI retrieved craft that was being operated in some way by some kind of psi operator.
I'm not sure where to sit on this one. It's like, so you've got this massive battle group operation going on, and then you've got Lockheed Martin going, we're going to test this downed UFO, which is Tic Tac, using the power of our minds. And we're going to do it by, I don't know, I mean, plaguing the battle group, or maybe testing the capabilities of the battle group to do anything or follow you, or I don't even know what the end game is to do that. It just seems a bit strange that you would use technology in that way. I mean, on the flip side, you could go, to be fair though, it's so close to a battle group that if something goes wrong with the technology, we've got a battle group, they can retrieve it and it's US military, but you don't want general US military retrieving classified technology. I don't know where to... I always got the feeling that Tic Tacs were practically human inventions, human made, but I don't know, it just feels like Ross is trying to hedge all bets. I think it's human made, but because there's sightings of these Tic Tacs going back so long, I'm going to hedge my bets to say, well, I don't think all of them are human made. I think he just needs to come out and tell us what he really, really thinks.
It doesn't mean that all Tic Tacs are Lockheed Martin. So please have a think about the implications of that. It's on the record that there is, from multiple witnesses, that there is an effort by the United States to use psi operators, people with psionic abilities, to manipulate, to operate retrieved non-human technology. We know, or I know from my sources, that there are problems reverse engineering a lot of the highly advanced technology that has been retrieved. And I know some people will be rolling their eyes and saying, you know, spew all, give us all of your information. I have to protect my sources as a journalist. And frankly, I'm only ever as good as my sources as a journalist. The reason why I've said that Lockheed Martin was responsible for the 2004 Tic Tac incident, highly controversially, by the way, there are a lot of people who've told me I should never have said it, and I don't think that's a healthy thing in the study of the UAP issue. If somebody can prove me wrong, prove me wrong. Very happy to hear it. It's always, I think, remotely possible that my sources, who are multiple and independent, they don't know each other, are telling me the wrong thing. I guess it's possible that there is some kind of massive psyop going on to disinform me. That's possible. I think extremely unlikely. But you can't say all Tic Tacs are Lockheed Martin just because I'm saying that the 2004 Tic Tac incident was a blue on blue, where Lockheed Martin was actually in some way testing its technology against a carrier fleet.
I saw, is it Walking with the Tall Whites? I cannot remember the chap's name, but he's basically worked at S4 in Nevada, like near Area 51, basically. And he came across the Nordics, which are called the Tall Whites, the aliens that worked with the US government. And he said that there was basically what they called the shuttle. It was like to shuttle people from their planet to Earth, and he said it was shaped like a big Tic Tac. So I don't know. And I've heard other things about, reverse engineering, that they couldn't, until recently, they couldn't even get into the UFOs because, let's face it, I mean, if it's that advanced, are you going to be able to just get in? You can't just use a sledgehammer or a chainsaw, can you? So, don't know. I'd love to just go for a walk around the Skunk Works or Lockheed Martin, just go and see what they're building out there.
I want to make that very, very clear because there's been a lot of misrepresentation in the last few weeks since I made the statement that I made.
That's exactly why I left that question in there, Ross.
No problem.
All right, Shardul, she's emailing us. Hi, Ross and Megan. There have been multiple claims that JSOC is involved in UFO crash retrievals for the U.S. government. Is there any merit to the name Cobra Sim Special Intelligence Mission Section being associated with these retrievals from JSOC? Thank you.
I have heard the name Cobra Sims because a lot of people on the internet in the UAP commentary community are suggesting to me that this is somehow the secret name of the legacy retrieval and reverse engineering program. I have no actionable data that suggests that Cobra Sims is a name of any ongoing operation. There are people who have convinced themselves that it is the name. I have no evidence to support that. I have been sent a document that has Cobra Sim written on it, and I think it's a fake. Unfortunately, there are a lot of AI-generated fakes doing the rounds right now, and I urge people to be extremely skeptical of a lot of the purported secret documents that are all structured and written in a particular way. I think a lot of people are sitting down, they're literally bored boys in their mama's basement, and they're sitting down thinking it's a pretty cool thing to talk to an AI and ask it to design you a secret document, and they get their kicks by putting it up on the internet and seeing if somebody can be suckered into running it.
I can't stand people who put fake information out on the internet. I think they are the worst scum in the world. I can't stand fake information. And you see it on Reddit. It's like someone will put something on there that it's 100% not what they're making out. Like they've probably captured something like a reflection in a car window and gone, oh look, it looks like a UFO, so I'm going to put it on Reddit and go, oh look, I captured this, and then people straight away go, yeah, it's a fucking reflection in a car window. You know what I mean? It's like you just got people attention seeking left, right, and centre. Just a bunch of bored arseholes. String them up, I say.
And sadly, that's what's going on at the moment. I think we have to be extremely careful of any so-called secret documents that are being placed up online. There's been a couple I've been asked about, and I've been able to prove them false. And I have not seen any evidence at all that there is a codename Cobra Sim. And if you think about it, it's far too sexy a name. In my experience with black military projects, they normally choose the most banal, dull, grey, boring name possible. Probably, like blue fish or grey gnome. Something that
Immaculate Constellation
sounds completely and utterly boring. Maybe it's the codes for the cleaning cupboards in the Department of Defence, but frankly, I don't think Cobra is going to be one of the names.
If you want to create a code word and you think, what could we do that if this ever got leaked, no one would believe it? I don't know. Like, legacy program, call it Wank Bubble or something like that. You know what I mean? Spunk Bubble. And someone will go, oh yeah, I've got a classified document here titled Project Spunk Bubble. People will go, what? Project what? Project Spunk Bubble. And they go, but yeah, well, that's obviously a laugh then, isn't it? It's obviously a fake. Someone's obviously pulling your pisser. And then you just wouldn't believe it. And it could be 100% genuine.
All right, thank you, Russ. Next question's coming from Ed. Hi, Russ and Megan. Has the question been considered on why these aliens themselves have not done anything significant to make themselves fully public? I mean, being more advanced than us, they are not our slaves. So nothing stops them from asking for a press meeting with, say, the US president, or for example, Zelensky, or contact Fox, CNN, News Nation, Al Jazeera, or some other channel and offer one or more interviews. As it is right now, they are hiding in the shadows while giving interested humans just enough sights here and there to keep them in a wild goose chase. Presumably, that suits their aims, but that begs the question what those aims are. After all, they have done nothing to stop COVID-19 or any other issue here on Earth. Something to think about. Best, Ed.
Well, fans of the program will know that this is one of the questions I often ask myself. I mean, frankly, I do. I find it perplexing that if there is an NHI presence engaging with this planet, why it isn't more overt. I don't know. I can only speculate. And maybe, as David Grush hinted to us in June of 2023, maybe there are agreements. I've never been able to get David to speak more on what he meant when he referred to agreements in his DOPSA, in his Defence Office pre-publication security review. But frankly, it's one of the things that I would like to see the Congress ask questions about, even if it's only in a skiff inside a secure room where it can be discussed confidentially. If there is an agreement with an NHI, I think the Congress and the world needs to know about it. Another possible reason that's been cited to me by people, and again, this is speculative, is maybe humankind needs to go through some kind of spiritual development, some kind of awareness, some kind of coming to terms with being human. I mean, frankly, we are a bunch of primitive apes. We're fighting trench wars in the early part of the 21st century, 100 years on from World War I, which was meant to be the war to end all wars. We're clubbing each other over the head. We're bombing each other in different parts of the world. We're a murderous, homicidal, brutal, often amoral being that, frankly, if I was someone of an advanced technology considering us for admission to some kind of galactic grouping, I'd be looking on as thinking what a grim bunch of apes we all are and whether or not we deserve membership.
I have to agree. And the fact that they're aliens means that their motives are also alien. And there's also the element now that when you get away from the nuts and bolts of what spacecraft may be, there's talk about that maybe these are living beings, maybe they're plasma-based life forms. So it's almost like interdimensional as well. Maybe they can't really coexist in our realm, but we can sort of see them. There's a million and one different speculated reasons. Maybe we're just ants to them, and why would you really want to have a conversation with an ant? You know what I mean? Maybe time and space. Maybe the reason why they're so fast is because we actually move really slow, so that they live at sort of a different time frequency to us. So everything to them looks like we are moving at such a slow rate, and they're just moving fast. Maybe it's the other way around. Who knows? Maybe we don't really register to them. You know, there's a million and one different things that you could think of. Agreements with the US government. I can't imagine that that's something that carries on. I mean, how would you possibly keep a conspiracy like that going for 70, 80 years? That's what I don't understand.
Maybe there's a transition. Maybe there's a spiritual awakening that we have to go through. I find it fascinating that millions of people, I do think it's millions, certainly I'm getting to the hundreds of thousands at this point, are contacting me basically saying that they are having direct interaction with NHI that is communicating with them, saying to them that, you know, they need to meditate, that they need to engage and talk about the phenomenon. I wonder whether the phenomenon isn't choosing to completely sidestep governments because it knows how bloody hopeless they are and how prone they are to lying and deceiving the public on the UAP issue. Every government will always try and secure some kind of an advantage over a foreign adversary rival by secreting this technology, as we suspect the United States, Russia, and China are doing. So maybe what's happening, and certainly this is my favourite thesis, is that the phenomenon is in some way psychically, telepathically reaching out to certain people and enjoining them to start becoming aware of its existence. Maybe that's the best way of waking up humanity to the fact that there is an other there. Maybe it just doesn't think that the institutions of government, the institutions of the United Nations, the mainstream media, they're not relevant. Why would an alien sit down and do an interview with the New York Times when the New York Times has done its level best to put its head in the sand on the issue since...
Go on, Ross. I mean, do you think some sort of alien intelligence is sitting there going, Fox, no, don't really like the way that they do reporting. New York Times, they've slagged us off recently. We're not going with the New York Times. News Nation, I like those guys, but they're a little bit too spiritual. Keep talking about telepathy and spirituality, and a little bit woo for me. Okay, what about sitting with the president? You mean that guy in the Epstein pictures? Yeah, maybe not him. What about a Putin guy? The guy who wrestles bears and rides horses in the buff. Yeah, but he's just kicked off with his neighbour, hasn't he? Yeah, all right. Well, let's not go there. What about China? Well, I mean, we could have sort of a secret conversation with them, but they can't keep viruses in labs. Never mind like information to themselves. So, yeah, I don't know. What about the Brits? No, best not go to the Brits because they're all getting arrested for putting flags up and saying we like bacon. Yeah, let's not go to the Brits. Is there anybody else? Canada? Yeah, we could do the Canada. No, let's not do Canada. Mexico? Could do Mexico. Now, they're busy at the minute. I mean, there's a lot of people moving from America to Mexico at the minute. Against the will, in most cases. Yeah. You know what? Fuck it. Let's give it another 100 years.
The groundbreaking stories done by Leslie Kane and Ralph Blumenthal. It's actively collaborated in the PSYOPs disinformation operations perpetrated by the defence and intelligence community. Every single American mainstream network, with the exception of News Nation, frankly, maybe a bit of work done by NBC's Gabby Schwartz. I mean, there's not really a lot of journalism being done by people other than myself, Chris Sharp at the Liberation Times, George Knapp over in Las Vegas. There's not a lot of mainstream journalists covering this issue. And you have to ask, why would any NHI presence speak to CBS, ABC, NBC, PBS? You know, why go to the mainstream media?
What about LGBTQ or, RESPCET? I don't know what it means to me. There's, I don't know, shitloads there, aren't there?
If any NHI are watching, sometimes I wonder if they are, we'd have you on tomorrow onto Reality Check, and I can assure you that there is a lively, engaged, enthusiastic, and highly interested audience that would like to hear what you've got to say.
An open invitation.
Is that all for this week? That's
Ross?
it.
Next week on Ross Coulthart, interview with, what is he called? Valiant Thor. Interview with an alien. Some good questions in there. I don't know. Tried to come up with the reasons why NHI don't sort of just land on the White House lawn. He's like asking why ants do some like strange things, or why goldfish does, or why a fly flies in a way that a fly does. Like, nobody can tell me why a fly flies the way a fly does. Because it doesn't go in a straight line over there and then come back over here and then go, I'm going to go over there. It goes, It's just so fucking random. Annoying things, flies. Either way, that it's disappointing hearing about the hearings. Or you've got George Knapp. All right, fair enough. He might testify on what some things he's heard secondhand. You got first-hand witnesses to UAP, like saying, I saw a light in the sky, I saw this. It's just more testimony, more people talking. No scientists, no evidence, no physical materials, no I handle the bodies, or we get the craft, or I'm part of a crash retrieval program and we do this, and then we take it there, and then I don't know. I just think the hearings are going to be a bunch of nothing, really. Anyway, on that positive note, I'm going to go off and probably go get a cup of tea, I think. Getting on a bit. You take care, and I will see you on the next one. Cheers.